I played the first Oddworld, Abe's Odyssey. Man, is that frustrating in the year of our Lord, 2022. The controls on it were just imprecise and fiddly enough to make me pull my hair all the time. The puzzle design was very 90s. I think I just missed the boat, and if you didn't play it back in the day when that was cutting edge game design, it's just not for you now, which is fine and totally fair. Um, but yeah, I did not particularly enjoy my time. I played the Mission Pack 2 for the original Quake. The original Quake is, there's a reason why we have those 90s retro shooters everywhere now. Those 3D 90s feeling retro shooters, pulling from the feeling of Quake and Doom. It's because there's just that fast-paced shooting is a lot of fun. I do have to pace myself with a lot of them, well, with the old ones at least, because they will make me nauseous. But, so long as I space it out often enough, take my breaks, drink my water, make sure I'm the right distance from the screen, I can enjoy my way through a level or two at a time. And that's what I did. I recommend the original Quake games. Well, I've played now Quake, Mission Pack 1, and Mission Pack 2. So that's 3 things. I enjoy them. I enjoy them a lot. But like I said, I have to play them in shorter bursts, which is a little unfortunate. We didn't have the full understanding of FOV and whatnot back then. I played through Dawn of War 2, that Warhammer Dawn of War 2. So the original Dawn of War was a traditional RTS. Dawn of War 2 was a squad-based RTS. And it was really, really good. Having characters that you leveled up over the course of the campaign and equipped, but then still, you'd have squad mates in those squads die, and you'd restock them, at respawn points. That was a very excellent way to set that up, and got you a different feeling of the Warhammer 40k universe, which I love the 40k universe. It's so silly. It got you that feeling of, that 4 or 5 Space Marines could hold off, an army. So, really enjoyed that. Look forward to playing the other Dawn of War 2 campaigns. Speaking of squad-based strategy, I played XCOM Chimera Squad. So, that is it's a spin-off from XCOM 2, based after that game's campaign. And you have set characters. You're not developing the characters from scratch. They're set personalities, and they simplify a lot of things. The missions are short, in short stages, where you're busting down the door. You're more of a SWAT team than a commando squad. And some of the changes for simplifying it, I think, maybe went a little far. Some of the encounters were maybe a little short, so you didn't build up, you didn't feel as used up by the end of a mission, like you just made it. But I like a lot of what they were trying there. I know they got a lot of guff from a lot of people, but I think there's something there in a short form XCOM that wasn't necessarily solved yet, but I want to see more of it. West of Dead was a roguelike shooter, so, twin stick roguelike, going through these rooms. So it was like Western Underworld themed, which is a neat theming, but possibly even more neat, The narration was done by your character, voiced by Ron Perlman. Just those dulcet tones commenting on things. I really enjoyed my time with it. It was tough, but felt fair the whole way through. The unlocks came at a reasonable pace. The game never felt easy, but never felt impossible. I recommend it. If the notion of a twin stick roguelite appeals to you, I definitely recommend checking out West of Dead. Costume Quest 2, another Double Fine game. It is turn-based combat, finding different outfits for different costumes for your kids. Gets you different abilities and powers and stats, and you level up your costumes by adding things to them. And it's all Halloween, spooky time themed. The whole thing is a great work of setting. I think that as a game, it was a little more perhaps coherent and better timed than the first one, if I remember correctly on the first one. It was all very twee, cutesy, Double Fine. It was almost too twee for me, but overall, it was a fun little diversion. For the King is, I think, a very interesting game that just doesn't click with me. I did not enjoy my experience playing it, but I think it's a good game. This is one of those special cases. Since I generally think I like most good games, I didn't like playing this. So the notion is you have 3 characters going around a grid bait, fighting things, doing quests, that kind of stuff. It's a roguelike in that once you run out of, revives for your characters, the whole save is scrubbed. And there is a time element in that as you take turns, the world gets harder, and there is some kind of, depending on what campaign you're playing, some kind of chaos build to the world that you can do things to lower down a little bit, but once it builds up the full way, you've also lost. So what I don't like is the combination of all of those things, because it's a roguelike, I'd like to be a little more careful with moving forwards, but it's really driving me forwards to keep up with the curve, and at the same time is trying to push me with a time limit. So it's all 3 of those together. I'd be okay with any 2, but all 3 of them together just makes for a little bit of an experience where you immediately feel that you should have optimized better. Like there's a clearly optimal route through things in a way that I just am not wild with. I just doesn't spark joy for me. So I think it's a good game if you like those 3 things together. Otherwise, it's one you could pass on. The Last Day of June is a puzzle game, a narrative puzzle game, that is surprisingly, yet again, another time loop. Well, not quite a time loop, but time travel-y manipulating thing. It's very melancholy, very maudlin. It was very well made. It just tried to pull at heartstrings in a way that didn't resonate with me. Take that as you will. Maybe it will resonate with you. Maybe it won't. The only way to know is to play it. But it was very well made, very well designed overall. Layers of Fear 2. I like Bloober Team. Bloober makes spooky games that give me the heebie-jeebies. The first half of Layers of Fear 2 did that a lot. It really had me spooked. Just the psychological stuff, the way it twisted and turned on me. The second half, though, was leaning in way more on the theme of, actors and art and whatnot, and did it in a way that just wasn't super scary for me. I mean, it was very atmospheric, but it didn't get me scared, and it didn't give me a narrative that held my interest in as of itself. So, kind of falls flat on that second half. That first half was scary as all get out, though. This game I did stream just in October for Spooktober. So if you wanted to go and find it, go and find my playthrough on it on this channel, you can decide for yourself how you feel about the spookiness levels. Pikuniku is, I think, a fun, cutesy little game. It was a very cute little game, very, very simple, clean art style, and, wasn't preachy. That's the big thing about the complaints about capitalism games, is I can't, a lot of them are really good, but I can't take preachy. This wasn't preachy. The writing was fairly funny, and, it was fun. I don't have a lot to say more about it. The way the puzzles worked was fun, and the way the rest of the world reacted to you, I think, was pretty well done. It's always nice to see a world be quite reactive to player just interaction, and it did it in some fun ways. So Pine was an interesting game. It bit off more than it could chew, design-wise. But what it wanted to do was, I think, pretty good. So it wanted to be a crafting RPG with a dynamic world that affected the story. How that played out was that there was crafting, but it wasn't as vital, and it wasn't as fun as it could have been. But it was there, and there were a lot of collectibles and the like, and there were 4 factions of villages, and you could get in good with the different factions at different times, and the factions would fight each other, and you could help them take villages, or you could destroy villages and they would be resettled, and eventually you would need to be allies with one of them and fight the other ones, and you could trade with, the different villages, and this all sounds very cool, but the execution was just a little too janky and a little too superficial. Also, you'd spend a lot, you'd have to work a lot to build relationships or build up a village to a higher level to get better resources out of it. But you could lose the progress way too quickly, so it wasn't quite balanced right. The narrative was functional. It tried to do some fun things, but it wasn't particularly deep or engaging. Pine is, I think, a great example of a game that really aspired to be something special, but as the indie title it was never going to be able to achieve it, and perhaps could have achieved some of its goals if it didn't try to achieve all of its goals. If it had brought in its focus a little more closely. But that is what it is what it is. I did enjoy my time with it, although it did overstay its welcome by the end. I played The Walking Dead: New Frontier, yet another Telltale game that I hadn't played up until this point. So, we've been following Clementine, and in this game, we actually follow a different character, although Clementine is, still obviously in it because we have to have our narrative thread. It actually solved one of the great issues that I have with both Telltale games and zombie narratives. So, in the same stroke. So, and the way it did it is the same in both. So, my big problem with zombie narratives is that we always continue watching the same people, so they always end up dying in long-running zombie narratives. Which is just lame, because you watch these characters get over so many things, and either they are immortal, and so you lose all tension, or they eventually lose, and so you have to have them lose eventually, so you don't lose all tension, and then they die. And both of those situations suck. With Telltale games, you need the narrative to be close enough to these rails, so even if you save a character, they end up dying because we need to get close enough to the same story so that the writing doesn't become infinitely complex. That also sucks. So the way to solve both of those is to have a one narrative thread that is a long-running thing, right? Clementine, we knew wasn't going to die because she is our narrative thread that drives us forwards. The other people, then, in the story, could all live or die. We don't know what's going on with them. We still have our tension, and it's an honest tension. We don't feel like we are in danger of losing, the main cast. At the same time, we have real tension. That's great. Similarly, we don't have to deal with the inevitable zombie issue in that whoever we have alive at the end, minor spoilers here, the story moves on. They don't have to come to the next part of the story because it's Clementine's story. They're just where, they're interacting with her right here, and we get to have a good time. We get to have a good time seeing where we leave them, and then we get to leave them there. We get to move on, and we don't have to ruin whatever happy endings they have, whatever successes they have. We get to move on. So I think that was really smart, and I really enjoyed that. And I think the writing was spot on, the acting was spot on, and it was, I think, a relative high point in the series. The first game was still bottled lightning. The acting and the writing was just so up there that even though there was a lot of false choice, it really was affecting. This, though, is a high point in a different way. Thimbleweed Park was made by Ron Gilbert, so one of the old LucasArts crew. Point-and-click adventure, where you actually end up being able to control, I think, 5 characters overall at different points in time. And I think was too clever for its own good. It was like, those 90s adventure game puzzles? Well, we could do so much more in terms of complexity nowadays with our modern computers. And, man, I don't like the 90s adventure game puzzles. It just, there was a lot of, I think, needless complexity on the puzzles, that it really tried to capture a lot of that spirit with the writing, and there were good jokes and good gags, but yeah, I don't know. It didn't have the heart that a lot of those 90s games had that were why I played them. And why I still play the remakes nowadays. So it was more focused on the cleverness, which was a bit disappointing for me.
This can't be.
I thought that playable characters couldn't die in adventure games.
So I mentioned Inscryption before. If you haven't played Inscryption, I'm not going to describe it very much. You need to play it. It is a card game and a puzzle game and a very interesting work of fiction. Things don't play out the way you expect them to. It plays with your expectations in great ways. And that's about all I can tell you without getting spoilery. It is a bit spooky, but it's never really a horror game, so you don't have to worry about that. And it was one of the most interesting things I played all year. That is a hearty recommendation.